Hi, Assalamu alaikum. Right now you are watching Beyond Translation Extended. Hi, Assalamu alaikum guys and girls. Have you already seen episode 2 of Beyond Translation? Did you like it? Did you write down some amazing gems that Ustad Nouman shared with us? If you did, please do share it. I want to hear from you. You can either share it here on our channel at Dops, or you can share it on your personal pages on your Instagram or Facebook with the hashtag Beyond Translation or hashtag DOPSDops. Okay, I'm going to be looking out for these hashtags. I'm going to be seeing which of you have the best gems to share, and inshallah I will repost that and I will share with you here on this channel as well, inshallah. Okay, so now I want to take you back to a time where I first met Ustad Nouman Ali Khan, to a time where I did my very first interview with him, and I think you can probably hear it in my voice and in the way I was, that I was super nervous. Do I need to look at any cameras? No, right? Okay.
No, just talk to each other.
Okay.
Don't forget they exist.
Okay. Bismillah.
So who's starting this?
I am.
You are? Okay.
Yes,
okay.
so I'm gonna say salam to you, and then I'll introduce the questions, and then we'll go
Sounds
from
good.
there. Okay. So this footage has never been seen before. It is exclusive. It's pretty raw, and only us, like myself and the production team, have seen it. Nobody else has, except for you right after this. Okay, so check this out. All right, Assalamu alaikum, Ustaz Nouman.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm very good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, very, very good.
Okay, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Good to actually have you here, mashallah. Welcome to Dallas.
Thank you, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So we're just going to be asking you a few questions about your favorite topic, which is the Quran.
Sure.
Okay, so just to share a little bit about myself, I've been reading and learning the Quran for about a year now.
Okay.
And there are a few things which I did struggle with, especially in the beginning when I started my journey, especially with where to start. Where do I begin?
Okay.
Do I start with learning the Arabic? Do I go straight to learning how to read the Quran? Or do I go to the translation first?
Right.
And then after that, after I started, I realized that I also have struggles with maintaining my motivation with reading the Quran every day.
Sure.
So what would your advice be for a person who wants to start their journey with the Quran?
So, in someone such as yourself, actually, I found myself in that position not too long ago. Well, actually, a very long time ago, because I'm old now. But the thing here is that in learning, especially in learning something like the Quran, the first thing you're going to need is motivation, and the first thing you're going to lose is also motivation. So the way to approach it correctly is if you take the more difficult aspects of the Quran, like pronouncing it correctly, or memorizing it, or learning to read it, or learning Arabic. These are hard things. They're not necessarily easy for anybody, right? So if you start with those things, it's very easy to get demotivated.
Yes.
It's very easy to get intimidated even, when am I going to finish? You know, somebody starts learning 10 letters of the alphabet and they still have a way, you know, more, they're not even halfway there yet, and they start saying, how am I going to remember all of this stuff?
Yeah.
You know? Same thing can happen with studying tajweed, same thing can happen with memorization. I've only memorized 2 ayat. Oh my God, this is like 4 pages long, or, you know, so
Yes.
this can be really, really intimidating. So students, when they start off, they start thinking about what they haven't done, how much they don't know, as opposed to appreciating what they do know.
What they do know already.
Right.
Okay.
My personal opinion on this is pretty different. I actually think that somebody who wants to start a journey with the Quran should actually begin with an appreciation first.
Okay.
Which almost as though I don't know anything about this book, I'm going to assume that I'm not even though I'm Muslim, I'm going to assume that I'm reading it for the first time, or I'm approaching it for the first time.
Right.
And when I did that a long time ago, that was also challenging. And the challenge there was that when I read a translation, a lot of times the translation itself was confusing. Right? What is this talking about? How come the subject changed? How come, you know, this is repeating itself so much? There's all these questions that came up.
Yeah.
So my intention for myself became, I need to figure out how this book works, because it doesn't work like other books. So for that reason, I put something together a long time ago, based on my own studies, just to help people appreciate what's going on in this book and some of the challenges you're going to have. Let me just let you know what those are ahead of time, because I've been through this. Once you begin to develop an appreciation, then you want to learn more.
Okay.
If you haven't even appreciated it yet,
Yeah.
then you don't necessarily even know why to keep going. So it gives you the
why am I
feel.
reading this book in the first place?
Why am I reading it in
Yeah.
the first place?
Yeah.
What makes it so interesting? So, you know, like, I know it's a bad example, but I think in some sense it's a good example. A lot of times people go watch a movie, but before they watch a movie, they see a trailer. And if the trailer interests them, then they're willing to spend time and money and sit in a theater and sit for 3 hours and watch the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But that trailer was 30 seconds. But that 30 seconds created an interest. We don't have that for the Quran right now,
Okay.
right? So that's a challenge.
Oh,
And that's something that I'm trying to work on. Hopefully give people a
MashaAllah.
teaser.
Okay.
This is what you're going to get. So why don't you put some more time and effort in, inshallah ta'ala.
Oh, mashallah. Okay. So my next question is to talk about the Quran as well. What interested you in the first place? And maybe you could explain or maybe give some examples of how beautiful and how amazing the Quran is
Sure.
to spark that interest
Sure.
for us to really begin to really understand and appreciate the Quran.
So I would actually break my journey with the Quran into a few milestones.
Okay.
And the first milestone was, as a child, I didn't really think much of it. It's just something you memorize, something you recite, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? And our school curriculum and all of that, coming up in a Muslim country, memorize a couple of surahs, just memorize what they mean. You don't even think about what they mean, actually. You can memorize what they mean without thinking about it, which is pretty cool. So I did that, and then you're done with it. That's it. That's all you have to do with the Quran. And then you know, sometimes you go to Ramadan and you hear nice recitation at the masjid or something, and that's it. That's the only engagement I had with the Quran until I was a teenager.
Okay.
And then when I was a teenager, I had completely disconnected myself from the religion altogether. My second milestone was in college. In college, I took a world literature class, and our professor in one of the weeks, the units was a comparison between the Bible and the Quran.
Okay.
And we were comparing the story of Joseph in the Bible and Surah Yusuf in the Quran, both English translations. And so I wasn't studying the Quran as a religious person. I was studying it because it was part of my curriculum in college in New York City. And when I read the two translations, I was really taken aback that the story of the Quran was so brief and it was missing so many details. And the Bible story was so exhaustive and it had so much more detail. So actually, my first response was, wow, the Quran is not that detailed.
Oh.
Like it's missing a lot of information. So I actually came up, my second milestone was criticism. And then my third milestone, a friend of mine invited me to come to this program at a masjid where this scholar was going to come and he was going to translate the entire Quran.
Okay.
Now I already had a critical mindset, so I said, okay, I'll give them a shot. Let's listen to what they have to say about this book. I read some of it. I think I know what it says. So I sat through the entire Ramadan listening to the translation and a brief explanation of the Quran.
Okay.
And that teacher, who eventually became my Arabic teacher, his gift was he'd be talking about the Quran, but he didn't have a translation in front of him. He was speaking the Quran, not reading the Quran.
Oh, mashallah. Okay.
And then when you're sitting there for an hour like that, or 2 hours, you almost forget that he's reading something. You just feel like he's talking to you. So throughout the month of Ramadan, I felt like the Quran was talking to me.
Oh, subhanAllah.
I've never experienced any book like that, right? And I realized something that month, that the Quran is actually, at its core, it's not a book, it's a conversation.
SubhanAllah.
It's not a book, right? Because a book is something on paper.
Yep.
But the Quran didn't come down on paper. The Quran came to the heart of the Prophet ﷺ and he spoke it to people. People heard it as a conversation. The thing is, I'm not affected by reading the way I am affected by a conversation. They're two different things, right?
Yeah.
So what really struck me was how important it is to speak the Quran and to engage people in being able to hear the Quran in conversation because the effect is incomparable. That was my third milestone. And I'll tell you about my final milestone.
Okay.
My final milestone was when I got I really got into Arabic studies. started developing vocabulary. Now I'm beginning to understand a little bit of the Quran. I think I get it. And then there was a series I listened to by Dr. Tariq Soidan many years ago. First time I heard something in Arabic, because my Arabic wasn't that good.
Yeah. Okay.
So I heard it, and his series was called The Miracle of the Quran. And he started giving some examples from the Quran about its language and about how words are placed and things like that. And I had never heard anything like this. What are you talking? I didn't know it was miraculous like that.
Right.
And I was just completely baffled. And then I just dove into that subject, and I'm still in that subject. So I'll give you a couple of quick examples of that. That's my final milestone. And I'm still here at this point. So I'll give you something recent that I was working on. The Quran has many names, and a lot of these names, they have nothing to do with Arabic. Okay, so for example, Ismail is the name of the son of Ibrahim alayhi salam. But Ismail, the word Ismail is not an Arabic word. It's a non-Arab word. Okay. It's actually could be argued that it's originally a Hebrew word. Now the interesting thing is that the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did not know any Hebrew, and even the Jews of Medina at the time, their Torah was the Arabic Torah. So they did not actually have Hebrew text. Okay. So you have a society in which nobody would know what Ismail means.
Yeah.
I was having a chat with a rabbi about Ishmael. What does it mean? I said actually and this is the Hebrew story, the biblical story.
Okay.
So Abraham is a really old man, alayhi salam, and he has a son, and he's amazed that at this old age, God heard his prayer. And as soon as the child was born, he said, Ishmael, and Ishma means to listen, and El means God, which actually means God listens.
God listened, mashallah.
So when he was born, he was so excited, he said Ishmael, and that became his name. God listened. Which is actually similar to Arabic, not the same. Ismail is like sami'a, which is to hear, and El is close to the word Allah. Like we say Sami'a Allahu liman hamidahu, Allah hears. So which sounds similar to Ismail a little bit, right? But the Arabs wouldn't know that. Now coming back to what I'm trying to say, what's amazing about the Quran in this case is that the Quran will use the word Ismail in an ayah. And through the ayah, it will show you what it originally meant, even though no Arab would ever know it.
Oh, subhanAllah.
So Allah says, وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَعِيلُ رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. When Ibrahim and Ismail were building the foundations of the Kaaba, they turned to Allah and prayed, "O Allah, accept from us, you are the one who listens."
Oh, subhanAllah.
So his name and the translation of his name are in the same ayah, right?
Yes.
And this is for over 60 names in the Quran. Names that were not known to the Arabs, and Allah translated them, and the translation is found within the ayah.
SubhanAllah.
It's just absolutely mind-blowing, you know?
Yeah.
So this is just one of many dimensions of what makes the Quran just absolutely mind-blowing. I'll give you one quick one.
Okay.
Musa. That's my favorite one. Musa alayhi salam, the thing is obviously Jews believe that Musa is a Hebrew word. But I argued with the rabbi telling him that it can't be Hebrew. Because when Moses, when the baby washed up, he washed up to the Pharaoh's palace. And the people in the palace are not Jews. They're not Hebrews. They're Egyptians. So, and since they raised him as a prince, they would have named him in the language of the kings, the royals. So his name is Egyptian. His name is not Hebrew. Right? Now, in Hebrew, Musa means, they pronounce it Mushe. And Mushe means something in the water.
Oh, okay.
Something, and so they attribute that to the story when the baby washed up. That's why he must be called Mushe, something in the water, which is similar to Arabic because ma in Arabic is water and shay is something.
Oh,
so Mushe is similar because Hebrew and Arabic are sister languages. But I said, no, actually that can't be it because this is an Egyptian name. The problem is the Egyptian language died about 3,000 years before the Prophet was born, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The ancient Egyptian ruins are there, but nobody knows how they spoke. So nobody can translate those words. It's gone. Until the late 1800s, the Europeans started developing Egyptology. They go to Egypt, they excavate, they look at the text, they figured out a way to pronounce it. They developed an entire alphabet mechanism. They put a dictionary together. So now we actually have some vocabulary of ancient Egyptian that has not been around for over almost 5,000 years. Okay. And if you look up Musa right now in that dictionary,
Okay.
it actually means newborn,
Okay.
newborn baby.
Newborn baby. SubhanAllah.
In the ayah of the Quran, the queen picks up the baby and takes him to the king and says, "Asa an yanfa'ana aw nattakhidahu waladan." Maybe he could benefit us, or we could take him as a newborn baby.
Oh, SubhanAllah.
So she must have said in her language, we could take him as a Musa,
Yeah, which is newborn baby.
newborn baby.
MashaAllah.
So you have things like that in the Quran that I just sit there and go, whoa, this is amazing.
And that's how the Quran speaks to you.
Right.
MashaAllah.
And then that's just one side of it, you know. And then
Yeah.
there's just the advice in the Quran, the relevance in the Quran, the way the Quran makes you ponder.
Yeah.
You know, like people pass over stories like they don't relate to them, but they do. Like you have the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam,
Yeah.
and he's talking to Sulaiman alayhi salam. Allah tells us his armies included jinns, it included animals,
Yep.
it included all species of animals,
Yep.
it included human beings. So imagine armies of hundreds of millions of creatures that are standing in front of him.
Yeah.
And he says in the ayah, Mali la ara hudhud. Hey, what's wrong? I don't see this bird hudhud. And I'm
Okay.
sitting there going, if you saw birds in the evening lined up on top of a pole
Yeah.
and one was missing, would you even know?
Well, you wouldn't notice.
You wouldn't
no.
notice. The fact that he noticed one bird missing in his entire regiment army, you know what that lesson is? That true leadership is when it doesn't matter how big you are, the people who are under you,
Yep.
you know them and you know them personally and you know them by name, and they feel like you care about them
Yeah.
to the point where you would recognize their absence.
MashaAllah.
Imagine a CEO in a company, he's got
Yeah.
500 employees,
Yeah.
and one day one of the security guards is missing. He wouldn't even know, but
Wow.
a real leader, hey, where's Hamid? I didn't see him today.
Yeah. You would notice.
He would notice.
MashaAllah.
That's what the Quran is teaching us. Like that's what leadership does, you know,
SubhanAllah.
subhanAllah. So you pass by even what, you would first think is just a story, but it's got so much inspiration in it. And that's really the relationship that I'm trying to foster with the Quran and that I'm trying to encourage other Muslims to develop with the Quran.
SubhanAllah. There's so many lessons to learn from the Quran which
Absolutely.
we can apply to our daily lives.
Yep.
Okay, so this brings me, that was actually my next question, which you
Okay.
answered already, which was how do we actually put into action what we learned from the Quran? And that was a perfect example.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you a couple of pointers on that.
All right.
It's quick things. One of the ways you could put the Quran into action very easily is you read something and you turn it into a dua,
Turn into a dua. Okay.
even if it's not a dua.
All right.
So you're reading Alif Lam Mim. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So you turn it into, Ya Allah, you know and I don't know. Teach me
Okay.
what I need to know.
Oh, SubhanAllah. Okay.
ذَلِكَ
Yeah.
الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. That is a book in which there is no doubt. Ya Allah, never let doubt come in my heart. You're reading somewhere else, Fir'aun. Let's be talking about Fir'aun.
Yeah.
Fir'aun turned away. Ya Allah, don't make me from people who turn away.
SubhanAllah.
You could literally turn everything you read in the Quran into a
Into a
dua.
dua. MashaAllah. Okay.
That's one of the easiest ways to interact with the Quran,
Okay.
And now since you're asking Allah to give you that quality, then you're more conscious about putting it into action.
Yeah.
You're more aware of that. And this is actually from the legacy of the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He used to recite and interact with the ayat of the Quran. Sometimes he would recite the ayah and he would respond to it himself. He would say, Alaysa Allahu bi ahkamil hakimin? Isn't Allah the greatest of all rulers? And the ayah, that's the end of the surah, but he would say, of course, you are the greatest of all rulers. And then he would go into ruku.
Oh, SubhanAllah. He would reply, okay.
He would talk to the Quran. He would talk back. So we're supposed to engage with the Quran.
Okay.
And that's the first step in putting it into practice. The mistake, and I want to point out the mistake.
Okay.
The mistake is when people think the only things that you put into Quran, the only engagement with the Quran is learn its rules, its halal and haram, and do that.
And that's it.
That's it.
Okay.
That's such a small part of the Quran. The Quran is so much more than that.
Yeah.
It's so much loving advice, so much counsel, so much like inspiration for your day.
Yeah.
And it's not only about putting it into action, it's actually putting it into thought, putting it into feeling,
Right.
becoming aware of it. And you get the engagement with the Quran in your prayer,
Yeah.
then everything starts falling into place. Inshallah ta'ala.
MashaAllah, that was such an inspiring talk and sharing session with Ustad Nouman Ali Khan. May Allah bless him for all of his hard work and efforts, him and Bayina, in doing da'wah and also to help connect people with the Quran and help people to understand the Quran and make it a huge part of their lives. Please go and support Bayina. They also have a channel. You can search for them right here and continue to support their efforts, inshallah. So everyone, don't forget, to hashtag the gems that you learn from this interview and from all of the episodes, hashtag Beyond Translation, one word, and also hashtag DOPS, DOPS. I'm looking forward to seeing them. And hey, if you want to, take a look at what else we have in store for you, what more amazing Islamic content we have for you here at DOPS, do subscribe to us as well. You can click on the subscription right here, okay? So I hope you all have an amazing week. And please don't forget to make dua for each other that, inshallah, we can continue to share with you amazing and beneficial content. Okay, Assalamualaikum.